In 1897, an exceptionally peculiar trial unfolded in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, USA. This extraordinary case revolved around Erasmus Shue, a local blacksmith who stood accused of the murder of his 21-year-old pregnant wife, Elva Zona Heaster. Astonishingly, the outcome of this trial saw Shue sentenced to a life behind bars, a verdict largely influenced by the spectral testimony attributed to the deceased. The pivotal moment that led to the perpetrator's life imprisonment hinged on a statement made by the victim's mother, Mary Jane Heaster. She claimed that her daughter's ghost had materialized before her on 4 occasions, divulging intricate details about her own murder. This extraordinary narrative commences on February 22, 1897, when the lifeless body of Elva Zona Heaster was discovered near her residence. A young boy stumbled upon the grim scene and swiftly reported the incident to his mother, prompting the local physician, George W. Knapp, to become involved. Nonetheless, upon the doctor's arrival at the scene for his examination, he discovered the lifeless body of young Mrs. Shue positioned on her bed within her bedroom. Her husband had already cleansed and attired her, draping a shawl over her head. He contended that the expression on his wife's countenance was not very dignified, suggesting that she perhaps wouldn't have wanted to be observed in such a manner. Given Erasmus Shue's prominent and esteemed standing in the community, Dr. Knapp conducted a perfunctory examination of Elva Zona's remains, refraining from removing the aforementioned head shroud. Dr. Knapp's assessment concluded that the cause of her demise stemmed from complications related to pregnancy. At her funeral, another enigmatic element emerged in the form of a long scarf adorning the deceased, a garment selected by her husband. Erasmus contended that it was one of the articles of clothing specifically requested by Elva Zona Heaster for her burial attire. On February 24, 1897, the young woman was laid to rest in the local cemetery, now recognized as Saul Chapel Methodist Cemetery. This might appear to mark the conclusion of the story, but in reality it was merely the prologue. In the subsequent weeks, the departed's mother, Mary Jane Heaster, experienced 4 ethereal encounters with the spirit of her daughter. Each time, the apparition of the young girl materialized by Mrs. Heaster's bedside, delivering a chilling revelation. The ghost conveyed that she hadn't perished from natural causes, but had met her demise at the hands of her spouse, who had strangled her. Upon receiving this startling revelation, Mrs. Mary Jane Heaster wasted no time in consulting John Preston, the prosecutor for Greenbrier County. Armed with this fresh information, Preston resolved to re-examine the case. As the investigation unfolded, the prosecutor unearthed several intriguing details. Among them was the fact that Erasmus Shue, a blacksmith of just 30 years, had already entered into matrimony twice before. His first wife had departed, alleging spousal abuse, while the second wife had tragically passed away only a year into their marriage. Notably, the second wife had also succumbed under mysterious and abrupt circumstances. Prosecutor Preston subsequently conducted an inquiry with the local physician, George W. Knapp. Dr. Knapp admitted that he had not conducted a thorough examination of Elva Zona's remains. This revelation prompted the prosecutor to issue an order for the exhumation of the body and the execution of an autopsy. The coroner's report, intriguingly authored by Dr. Knapp himself, left no room for ambiguity. The young woman's cause of death was unmistakably determined to be strangulation. The examination revealed marks on her neck strikingly similar to those described by the ghostly visitation recounted by Mary Jane Heaster during her encounter with the spirit. As detailed in the coroner's report published on March 9, 1897, Zona Heaster Shue had tragically fallen victim to murder, as her neck exhibited the telltale signs of such a heinous act. Erasmus Shue found himself promptly apprehended and charged with his wife's murder. He was swiftly transported to the Lewisburg jail to await the commencement of his trial. During his confinement, Shue imprudently divulged his intentions to wed 7 women and expressed unwavering confidence in his eventual release, citing the paucity of evidence against him. The trial commenced on June 22, 1897, with Mary Jane Heaster, the mother of the victim, serving as the primary witness for Prosecutor Preston. Astutely, Preston refrained from broaching the subject of the ghost's apparition and confined his questioning to the established facts of the case. The defense attorney, on their part, attempted to cast doubt on Mrs. Heaster's credibility by probing her about her daughter's ghostly visitations during cross-examination. However, this strategy backfired as Mrs. Heaster remained steadfast in her narrative and didn't waver in her testimony, even in the face of the defense attorney's crafty questioning. Upon the conclusion of the trial, the judge encountered challenges in instructing the jury to disregard the ghostly account. Many members of the Greenbrier community appeared inclined to believe Mrs. Heaster's version of events, and the ghost story continued to hold sway in their mind. Erasmus Shue was convicted of his wife's murder on July 11, 1897, and received a life sentence. Contemporary reports indicate that the ghost of Greenbrier was never officially mentioned by the prosecution and did not play a decisive role in Shue's case. However, it is also noted that following the trial, an enraged mob had plans to forcibly remove the murderer from jail and carry out a lynching. Thankfully, the sheriff and his deputies successfully dispersed the mob before any harm was done. Erasmus Shue passed away 3 years later, on March 13, 1900, while incarcerated in the West Virginia State Penitentiary at Moundsville, falling victim to an undisclosed illness. He was laid to rest in an unmarked grave in a local cemetery.